The trailer for the new Avatar the Last Airbender movie on Netflix looks so awesome, and that's not what we're watching today. Because first, I have to pay my dues, and I have to watch the 2010 Avatar the Last Airbender from M. Night Shyamalan, and you guys have to hear about it, because who doesn't love this content of a movie from 14 years ago that we're all trying to forget? So let's get into it, shall we? Avatar the Last Airbender 2010 is a movie from M. Night Shyamalan about two kids named Katara and Sokka who find a kid named Aang in the ice and discover he's the Avatar, the only person who can bend all four elements of fire, earth, air, and water. As the Fire Nation hunts for Aang and does their best to capture him, Katara and Sokka travel with him as part of his ragtag team to go learn the other three elements because he's only learned air so far, which actually turns out to just be learning water in this movie, because apparently they thought that they would get away with making two more of these, and thank God that didn't happen. So the movie starts with the stars of the Paramount sign being water, and the Nickelodeon being on fire, and then all of these different people doing different bending poses with characters in some language that I can't read. Which I just gotta say, this is one of the first problems I noticed with this movie, among others. Okay, no, the very first problem, you'll see what it is. But this is one of the problems that I noticed with the movie, is the fact that none of the bending looks graceful. Like in the animated series, bending's a very graceful thing that had little me wishing I could do it. And I think that if I had seen this first as a child and then the animated special, I would have never wanted to bend ever in my life, because the people bending in this movie look so strange. We then get a Star Wars intro from Katara, who explains that the elemental nations used to live in harmony and the Avatar was the person who could master all four elements and keep a balance between the earthly realm and the spirit world. But she says it like Avatar, and this is the problem we see over and over again in this film, is that they just change names whenever they want to. So like Sokka becomes Sokka. Sokka? Who is that? Aang becomes Aang.
Is it okay if you tell me your name? The monks named me Aang.
No, they named you Aang! Sorry. Sorry. Don't be alarmed. I'm just upset. You'll understand when you're older. The Avatar is now the Avatar, and Iroh is Iro. So that's cool and edgy. And at about the third time that I heard Sokka's name and was lamenting about this change, God, Sokka is so infuriating, was when I started to wonder if M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, who he made this movie for his daughter, I think, because she was a big fan of the series, I started to wonder if she even enjoyed it. Like, did she even like this movie? We then meet Katara and Sokka as Katara practices her waterbending and says she somehow did better this time, even though she splashes Sokka so bad that he turns to violence in response, which is an interesting departure from him being the comedy relief in the animated series. Anyways, she said she did better this time because she was thinking about her mom, which is just the first that we see of the wonderful character development that happens in this film. And all I could think about during this scene was the true first problem of the movie that I first noticed, which was, why are they so white? Why are they white? I also at this point was like, oh my God, we're only 3 minutes in. You can do this, Nat. It's okay. And these guys don't even like look or act related. They seem like strangers who met the day before filming, which could be the case. Katara explains that she and her brother are a part of the Southern Water Tribe. Then Sokka fails to track a tiger seal and instead stumbles upon a huge lake. Which, what the fuck is this set 4 minutes into the movie? Why do I feel like we're perpetually in green screen? So at this point I realized Aang was in the water underneath them, which Sokka apparently also realized because his dumbass takes his stick and then breaks the ice open pretty freaking violently, and then all of a sudden is like, we have to run when it starts cracking. Like, yes, the ice is gonna crack if you do that. Good job! You figured out some mechanics of the physical world that you're in. We love to see it. He's like 20. From the lake rises this big ball of ice, and I'll say that this part is pretty mundane, except for this moment where Katara takes Sokka's like stick, and Sokka says something like, "Don't you dare break open that ice, Katara!" And she just goes,
Katara, do not hit that!
Like, it reminded me of when I was playing Roblox and those thugs walked up to Freddy's and he raises this huge mallet and just goes ding. It was so funny. And I cackled like a hag. And my plan at first was to film my reactions to the movie so I could put parts of that in this video, which I had chosen not to do. And then I missed that part, which was by far my best reaction. And I'm so sorry about that. I decided to film after this. I turned on the camera. I was like, I cannot miss an unintentionally hilarious beat like that again. But inside this ice ball, Katara and Sokka find a random boy and a random massive bison that they just like don't question or wonder about. Appa is in the ice with Aang? Is that how it happens? And the only thing that really happens is Katara saying, yeah, he's exhausted, like really sassily, before they take him back to the village apparently. We don't see them take him back to the village, but like the next scene, he's just like waking up in the village. And this part's really funny because he's in a tent and he's getting dressed and Katara walks in and she goes, whoa, when she sees his tattoos, which is just the dialogue in this movie is stellar, really. We should all take notes from the dialogue in this movie. Oh my God, this dialogue is breaking my brain. So they have a 2-sentence conversation that's supposed to set up their very meaningful and deep friendship throughout this movie that eventually turns into a marriage later on in the canon of these characters. And then after those 2 sentences, the Fire Nation shows up. Sokka walks in and says, the Fire Nation is here. And Aang goes, is something wrong? Because he is 12 and he's smooth-brained and he can't read the room to save his life. The Fire Nation attacks the Water Tribe and takes Aang prisoner. And it's during this scene that we get this wonderful line.
Break him out of the isolation of the sky. Now the Fire Nation is here with their machines.
This is also the introduction of Prince Zuko, and you guys, it's so confusing because we see him and his scar looks like just one little line on his face.
I am Prince Zuko.
And I have one line on my face. And then the next time we see him, we're like, oh, okay, there's an actual scar there. And then the third time we see him, I was like, is there? His scar really can't make up its mind in this movie. Zuko also says,
Bring me all your elderly!
why does he want the elderly people? Not my grandma, man. She's all I have left. Don't you know that my mom was captured and killed? Everyone else does as I told them point blank at the beginning of the movie. And then does nothing with the elderly. So I guess like maybe he just wanted to gaze upon their beautiful faces or something. And they were so bad at hiding the Avatar, which I guess they don't know the Avatar, which I guess they don't know he's the Avatar yet. I can't say Avatar this whole, I can't. Anyways, they didn't know he was the Avatar yet, but he just fucking saunters out of his little tent and he's like, don't hurt these people. I'll come with you.
I'll go with you. Don't hurt me.
And it's like, this character is 12. I feel like he would be a little more scared, maybe? So Aang goes on the boat, and meanwhile, Sokka and Katara's grandmother becomes a very helpful plot device. Wow, Grandma coming in with the wisdom. In telling them that that boy is the Avatar, and you need to go help him. He's gonna need you. We found that boy, and I talked to him for 1 minute. We have to save him. We exchanged 2 sentences, Sokka. He's the connection between the earthly world and the spirit world. And Katara goes,
What is the spirit world, Grandma?
and then we get a really convenient and relevant monologue from Grandma about exactly what the spirit world is and how it works. By the way, the spirit world monologue from Grandma just made me want to watch Pocahontas.
It exists nonetheless.
I should just be watching Pocahontas. And if you want to watch Pocahontas instead of this film, absolutely do it. Don't watch this film, ever. Then we hear Appa make a noise and they step outside and there are kids hanging from his feet and he's in the air. That's kind of cute, the kids hanging on his feet. Katara goes, this bison creature thing floats. And it's like, yep, good job, sweetie. You did it. So on the Fire Nation ship, they do a special test on Aang to see if he is, in fact, the Avatar. I see what's happening, a little bending test. And they take out the 4 elements and place them in front of him and things happen. Yes, pour out all the water. But he really isn't doing anything. He just stands there the whole time. But apparently him doing nothing throughout this test means that he passes, and they tell him he won't be granted his freedom and he'll be instead kept on the ship, which is really funny because Aang is like, you told me I could go. And Iroh goes, well, as it turns out, you're the only one who can pass this test. As it turns out. So stupid. Is that supposed to be Iroh? Iroh's so much cooler. And then they go, don't even try to escape. And then Aang proceeds to escape with absolutely no problem. And there's also this part where they say, you have nowhere to run. And then he breaks out like his kite thing and flies away. And it's like, did you forget he's an airbender? That's like the most important part of his lore. Is that he's an airbender. He doesn't have to run from you. The music at this part is cool at least. But the music in this movie does this interesting fun thing of switching between something that's really like appropriate for the moment and really gets you in the headspace of like the characters and stuff. Not that that could happen in this movie because the characters suck. But then sometimes it just goes into Star Wars, like literal Star Wars music. I think they just stole the Star Wars soundtrack. So he flies away on his kite and then he lands on Appa where Katara and Sokka are conveniently there, which I don't know how they found out how to ride Appa because his keyword is
Yip 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 yip
Yip yip.
yip 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 yip
Yip yip.
yip yip.
but no one says yip yip in this. But in the animated series, that's something that Katara and Sokka have to learn. They figure out how to ride him, and they take him to the Fire Nation ship because apparently they know exactly where it is. So Aang gets back on Appa, and when he's flying towards Appa, it just made me want to ride Soren over California. I was like so distracted during this film. I was thinking of every fun thing I could be doing instead of watching this film. Then Zuko watches him fly away, and he goes,
For a moment, I had my honor back.
which is just another great example of the wonderful character development that we see in this movie. So Aang flies Sokka and Katara home to the old airbending nation where he finds everyone dead. They're all dead, bitch. Sad. And Katara tells him that he was in the ice for 100 years and the Fire Nation started a war, at which point he screams at her and he says, "You're lying!" Even though literally there's the bones of his dead friends in front of him. There's also this funny moment in this scene where he is 10 feet into the bone field, but he steps on a bone and he goes, like he has a moment, and I'm like, dude, did you not step on 1,000 bones to get there already? At that point, he goes Avatar mode and he meets this dragon spirit, but nothing really happens between the dragon spirit at this point, and Sokka and Katara just yell at him until he comes back. Also, we have some really good moments during this scene, like Sokka's huge eyes around minute 19 and a drool moment around minute 20. And then also, Katara goes to move closer to Aang during this Avatar moment thing, and there's like this fucking tornado around Aang, right? Because he's freaking out. And Sokka goes, "Katara, don't go near him!"
Stay away from him.
And I'm like, dude, there's a hurricane separating you two. Why are you trying to talk? Why are you trying to communicate with Katara? She cannot hear you. So at this point, a random fire general named Zhao offers to have lunch with Zuko so he can announce to his platoon of warriors everything about Zuko's backstory so that also we can hear it. Zuko tells Zhao that one day Zhao will be bowing to him before suddenly fighting a bunch of Zhao's soldiers for no reason, while Iroh sips his tea because we gotta have one thing connecting him to the animated character, right?
We would be honored to join you. Do you have any ginseng tea? It's my favorite.
It's not said that it's tea, so you wouldn't know if you hadn't seen the animated series. That's right, the word tea is not said one time in this film. Fucking disgrace. We go back to Aang, who's in the Southern Earth Kingdom, and he and Sokka and Katara run into a group of earthbenders who take them to their city, which, by the way, there's this kid that runs up before them, and I was watching intently, and I just missed this kid appearing. So I saw him, and I was like, who is that person? Because he hides behind Sokka like he's one of them. I also thought he was a girl at first. Who is that? A girl? Oh, it's a guy. This is the moment that I realized that Sokka is played by Jasper from Twilight.
Are you the Avatar, Aang?
Where do I know this guy from? He plays someone so weird and awkward. Oh my god, he's Jasper from Twilight! Stop! Is this real? I can't. I can't. Oh my god, it's Jasper!
It would be nice to not want to kill you all the time.
Also, this line, they walk up and they say,
That child is being arrested.
and it's so well written. They take him to the Earth City that's being run by Fire Nation homies.
How did this happen to your village?
I wonder, when Katara just told you that they started a war, and Aang gives this big speech about like rising up and like getting out of where they are and not being prisoners anymore, while the Fire Nation people do literally nothing about it. Like, they're not bothered that this guy is just like, you should not stand for this.
Why are you acting this way? You are powerful and amazing people. You don't need to live like this.
So we're not seeing quite enough of the communist dictatorship that the Fire Nation is in this film for me. Not quite political enough. The Earth people are like, you can't be the Avatar. The Avatar's an airbender. And he's like, I am the Avatar.
I ran away, but I'm back now.
And then we cut back to him and he's like getting ready to fight people because there's like one Fire Nation guy behind them. Katara does the longest gear up for a shove that I've ever seen, and the guy has no idea as she's running up to him for 5 minutes and he just gets shoved by the wimpiest shove ever. And then Aang starts airbending and some guy in the crowd goes,
How is he doing that?
and then the earthbenders start this synchronized dance routine against the firebenders, and the firebending in this scene is so awkward. You guys, they really did not make the bending look good. It's also funny because throughout the movie, the firebenders wait so patiently for their turn in the battle. Like, it's so horribly choreographed. They just are like, okay, now I'll fight. And it's like, are you not trying to stop the Avatar? They're victorious. The earthbenders synchronize dancing, scares them away, they flee, and Sokka like kicks one of them as they're leaving. And then they go to this shed and one of the earthbender guys is like, they took away anything relating to earthbending. And I was like, okay, but they put it in a shed that you apparently know exactly where it is and is completely fine and easy to open. And then suddenly the trio in this scene where the camera is so close, like literally this close to their faces, it's so rough. They come up with a plan for Aang to learn all of the 4 elements so that he can somehow stop the Fire Nation. And for some reason, part of this plan is to stop at smaller cities on the way so they can encourage them to join the fight. There's a montage of them visiting similar cities, and Aang busts all these moves and kicks people out. And suddenly Sokka thinks they're being followed, which is literally not explained at all. And then we get more of Katara just telling us what's happening. And then she says, for some reason Aang was having trouble learning waterbending, which she fucks up the whole movie. It's like, bitch, so are you! At 34:40 in the movie, we get a nice Windows loading screen before we meet Zuko's dad, who looks like a fucking eunuch. Like, this guy does not have testicles. Am I allowed to say that? Zhao says he and his people are working on deciphering scrolls about where the moon and ocean spirits live, and that this will somehow show people the power of fire. And these scrolls are from this ancient library. And Zhao wants to set a trap for the Avatar using their earthbender people that they have under their command, and he goes, we should set a trap for this person. Then basically Zuko's dad is like, you better beat my son to finding the Avatar, and this race is started between Zuko and Zhao. In Fire Nation Colony 15, Iroh tries to convince Zuko to abandon his quest of finding the Avatar by opening the conversation with, look around at all these beautiful women. You could fall in love here, which I simply was not ready for. And then there's, infuriatingly, a shot of a man at 36-17 who must have been just like the worst actor possible, like the worst actor known to man, because that man would have been perfect for Iroh. So I don't know. Okay. Zuko calls a random ass kid over to tell him the story of how he got banished from the Fire Nation so we can hear it. And the kid apparently just knows exactly what happened, which is that Zuko had to fight his dad because he tried to keep his dad from sending his friends out to war where they would die. And I was happy to see here at least that Azula looked and felt pretty unhinged. Like, so far that's the only thing they got right in this movie. Zuko finishes his story and the kid just fucking leaves. The kid just leaves? He's like, my role in the story is done. I'm gonna go. And then apparently, according to Katara, Aang is very distracted today. He reveals he wants to visit the Northern Air Temple because he thinks being in a sacred place will help him reach the Dragon Ghost again. There's no reason for him to want to reach the Dragon Ghost again because, like, Dragon Ghost literally didn't say anything helpful earlier. Anyways, he says, I'll be back in less than a day. And we cut to this super close shot of Sokka, which was so confusing because at first I thought that Sokka could hear him. We're so close to Sokka's face that we can see his contacts. It's too much. He's like, no. Aang can't go. We're being followed. Still no proof of that. Aang has a flashback to his time at the air place. I don't know what it's called. And then he sees the dead bones of everybody again and he's like, I can't do this alone. I need help. And so he goes over to Appa and Katara and Sokka are supposed to be sleeping, but they both sit up at the same time and just watch him leave. Like, they do nothing to stop him. Aang flies to the Northern Air Temple, and honestly, the most important part of this scene is Appa's face. Why did they do that to that poor bison? It was a jump scare. Aang meets an earthbender guy who's the only character in the series so far who says the word Avatar right. And he's like, you're the Avatar, right? And Aang just like, without any shame or fear, is like, yeah. And then, you know, as karma for Aang being so fucking dumb with who he gives that information to, the earthbender guy leads him into this room of statues of other avatars, which is very significant in the animated show, but like, doesn't matter here. It's just a trap, and Zhao's men come out and take Aang. And apparently the earthbender guy did this for like a bag of coins this big. So while Aang is captured, he has another spirit world moment of the dragon guy telling him knowledge has been taken from the sacred library, and Aang says he'll stop them. So the dragon tells him to go to the Northern Water Tribe to stop them from taking it. And at this point I was just thinking, this movie really takes all of the magic out of Aang being the Avatar and just makes him a really weird, goofy ass kid. He's goofy. was watching it the whole movie, like, but he's not like goofy in the way that he is in the show. It's just, it's so well done, you guys. This movie is so good. Commander Zhao says that he won't kill Aang because he'll just be reincarnated. And then this random dude drops down from a carriage. We have another jump scare moment. It's quite haunting. And this character is suddenly a goblin, like walking around on things, acting all creepy. I was like, I'm suddenly watching a horror movie. The goblin mode dude, which I will be calling him from now on, goblin mode dude sneaks into Aang's room, and Aang's 12-year-old brain thinks that he's gonna be killed, but obviously goblin mode dude is there to save him. He breaks Aang's chains with his swords? Is that possible? And then he throws Aang a weapon, and they fight their way through the firebenders, who for some reason are, again, not attacking Aang. Like, bro has time to deliver full-ass lines in between attacks. And at this point I thought, I bet that goblin mode dude is Zuko, and I don't know if this was a premonition from me watching the show, because I haven't seen the show in a hot minute, but I think maybe subconsciously I knew. Aang goes back for goblin dude instead of flying away. They start fighting together, and there's lots of weird slow-mo during this fight for the first time in the film, I think. And then Zhao just lets them go because goblin mode dude threatens to kill the Avatar, so he's like, you can go. And then an arrow hits goblin mode dude in the face, and it's revealed to be Zuko. Aang uses his airbending skills to create a fog, and the audio and transition choices here as he escapes are very strange. But he takes Zuko into the forest, but then Zuko just turns back up at the Fire Nation place that they were at earlier, and apparently he's been gone for 4 days. Iroh says to him, it looks like you went through a great deal, but Zuko literally looks exactly the same. And then apparently Iroh is just getting a foot massage all of a sudden. Yet another jump scare. Jump scare 3 of this film, Iroh's feet. I don't know if that's a thing for his character in the animated series, but whatever. I digress. Maybe it's Shyamalan's thing. Zuko looks at a lantern in his room and has the sudden realization that his room's gonna explode. He runs out, and then the place explodes, and Iroh goes, Zuko! With his hands up really weird. We go back to Aang, who he and the rest of his team are swimming north, according to Zhao. We learn that the Northern Water Tribe is beyond the Fire Nation's reach. Apparently not, because the Fire Nation shows up later, but whatever. And they openly practice waterbending, which we don't have any context for why this is weird or crazy in this film. A big wave closes them into the Water Tribe when they arrive, and again, all of the benders are in this flash mob. We have Katara exposition round 50, and then we meet the Moon Princess, who is pretty, so that's good. She looks like a very faithful rendition of the character in the show, and that's about it. But everyone they chose for this movie does have big teeth, and that's something I noticed. Katara says, my brother and the princess became friends right away, and then we, see them exchanging 0 words and just fucking smiling at each other. Aang jumps around for them to prove he's the Avatar, and they say, oh my god, he's the Avatar. We need to start preparing for war. So then we see Sokka and the princess standing next to each other as everybody prepares for war, which is a huge deal. And then Sokka offers to be the princess's guard, despite his absolute lack of any combat or protective skills.
Okay? Everybody can help us now!
He's obviously the best choice. We learn that this tribe gets their power from the water and moon spirits, and apparently Zhao has found the location, and Zuko's daddy tells Zhao to eliminate the spirits. Aang starts learning waterbending. There's this part where the guy's like, do you want to spar? And the transition into the sparring is so fucking strange.
Would you like to spar? You haven't sparred in a few days.
What a transition. That was non-consensual. Aang did not say yes. The switching between scenes right now and characters and plot lines is killing me. Can we be with one plot for 5 minutes? Is that too much to ask? Yes. Then there's some forced backstory for Iroh with Zhao. Every time they approach backstory with characters in this film, it's so heavy and so blunt.
You are a gifted strategist. No one can argue that. Your failure in the 100-day siege of Ba Sing Se won't be held against you. Your son died in that siege, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Again, I offer my condolences on your nephew burning to death in that terrible accident.
Thank you.
Yes, this is how characters talk to each other. They just say, remember that time when this and this and this happened? In that order? And remember how tragic that was for you? And then there's a scene here with Aang and Katara waterbending together that's actually kind of nice. It's the first time that the bending looks graceful in this entire film. Then ash rains down from the heavens suddenly because the Fire Nation is here. I wonder what happens now. How will they ever escape the Fire Nation for the 10th time? We get this shot of tiny Zuko on a very big ship. Wow, Zuko was tiny in that shot. Iroh tells Zuko, your chi can warm you, so suddenly chi is a thing in this film, like an hour in. And then Zuko takes this little boat away from the ship and then jumps into the water and starts swimming. And I was like, why don't you just jump off the ship? But then he finds some ice and he warms up his chi, I guess, to burn his way through it. And he sees the Moon Princess leading Aang to the very spiritual place. The city was built around this place. Actual line from the film. At this very spiritual place, Aang starts meditating. Sokka and the Moon Princess leave. I'm so exhausted. And then I was watching Katara, who stayed with Aang, and I was watching her look at him while he was meditating, and I was like, I know this bitch is not about to start speaking to a meditating man. And she did. I wrote, she did it, what a bitch. Zuko interrupts the meditation and Katara's not even shocked. She just goes, the Fire Lord's son. Like, that's her whole line. Then Zuko sets this place on fire so he can battle Katara, and Aang is apparently still meditating, and the pauses in this battle are absolutely unbearable. We learned just now that Katara is the only waterbender left in the southern tribe, which feels like it should have been mentioned earlier, but she just says it offhandedly and then it's never talked about again. And alarm bells start ringing in the tribe because for some reason they can tell that Zuko's in this cave. Then Zuko sits Katara back up after blasting her with fire and tucks, adjusts her hair. He's a good guy, you guys, don't worry. We're really developing his evil to good arc here with him picking up Katara. Unfortunately, we're still watching this movie. The Water Tribe prepares to face the incoming Fire Nation ships, at which point we learn that Zhao is planning to have Iroh kill the spirit? I don't know how spirit murder works, but it feels like it shouldn't. And then there are lizard monsters. They have lizard monsters? Where did that thing come from? What is that? I've never seen these lizard monsters in my life, but they're there, okay? They're there, and they're there to make their presence known. So then Sokka wakes up Katara, who tells him that Zuko took Aang, and we cut to Zuko, who's literally just like talking to himself because Aang is still meditating, and he tells Aang that the plan is to wait till everyone is fighting everyone, and then to slip out in the night, which this kid's like 16, so it makes sense that that's the extent of his plan. Aang returns to the spirit forest thing. He sees the dragon spirit, who feels very strange this time. I was like, hey man. And the dragon spirit all of a sudden tells Aang that he's not dealing with the loss of his people and he's stopping himself from grieving, and he must let go of his pain and anger, and as the Avatar he's not meant to hurt others. So he basically says, stop trying to end this war, dude, go to therapy. And then the dragon says, okay, well, you can use the ocean and show them the power of water to win the fight. So then Aang wakes up to Zuko just talking to himself, which is so hilarious, this whole moment, because he wakes up, he looks at Zuko, who is straight up talking to himself, and he goes, he just runs, like a literally blink escape, and it sent me. Apparently Iroh's brother and Zhao decided to kill the moon spirit, but we never see Iroh's brother. Who the fuck is he? Where the fuck is he? I'm not sure how you can kill a spirit, but that's what's happening, okay? Aang and Zuko fight, and I was trying to put my finger on why it was so anticlimactic and straight up boring, but I think it's just the plot armor of knowing nothing bad will happen. Like, it just can't. Nothing bad is gonna happen. You're just sitting there like, okay, how are they gonna escape again? Katara freezes Zuko in a block of ice straight out of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and Aang unfreezes Zuko's head and tells him to stay hidden because he won't be killed by waterbenders if he stays hidden. And then as he's running out of the room, he says, we could have been friends, you know. Zhao's right-hand man hands him a scroll, which he promptly says, this is from the Great Library, which is just painfully funny. Zuko uses his chi to melt the ice. Zhao picks up a spirit fish, and Iroh pleads with him not to kill the spirit because the world will go out of balance, at which point the three teenagers come in to save the day, but like all four of them do absolutely nothing as Zhao just fucking shanks this fish. And they all scream, and the Moon Princess collapses, and then the world goes into chaos and the sky turns red. Aang gets a really bad migraine, and we get this fantastic zoom in to Iroh's eye.
You're too soft, Iroh.
Whoa! Whoa! And then Iroh gets really mad, and a soldier says, he's making fire out of nothing, as they run, exactly like that.
He's making fire out of nothing.
Zhao flees like a baby, and the Moon Princess is suddenly awake again, and Iroh, in a really boring speech, tells her to give her life to the spirits, while Sokka is over her shoulder, like, making a prize-winning face, and moving his Adam's apple so much. The Moon Princess, while she's telling Sokka that she's gonna do it, touches his face a whole ton, and kisses him, and I really only could look at his Adam's apple in this scene. Nothing else existed to me in that moment.
I will miss you more than you know.
I will miss you more than you know. We've talked twice. our bond is unbreakable. And then apparently all she had to do to give up her life force was lay down in the water. And suddenly her hair turns brown and the fish comes back to life and order is restored and the moon comes back and Zhao looks dismayed while Sokka cries over the dead moon girl. Then Zhao does the silliest pose I've ever seen in any movie at Zuko, but Zuko chooses not to fight because Iroh says he just wants to fight you so he can capture you. But Zhao attacks him anyway and Iroh stops him, and then these waterbenders come up and they lift Zhao into this big water bubble where he drowns, and then they drop him. Aang fights through the fire guys with a bunch of slow-mo, and then he runs in this line through them for no reason. Then we enter another air place flashback where I just saw that Aang is so freaking short, and a leaf lands on a kid's face, and it's supposed to be emotional, and everyone bows to Aang, and he runs away, and again, no one does anything. He just turns and runs, and they're all like, so apparently this flashback helps Aang master water and he makes a really big wave and everyone is stunned and Katara is overjoyed. There's a huge wave. It's a cause for celebration. And everyone turns to see this wave and there's absolutely no carnage on the battlefield. His big wave goes over the Fire Nation ships and this guy puts his hands up like this to like shield himself from water droplets, I guess. The Fire Nation retreats and Aang puts the wave down. So like no progress has been made in the battle whatsoever and we're 5 minutes from the end of the movie. So the Fire Nation guys run. It's at this point that I really noticed Katara's flyaways were flying. It was like she had done 2 whole things in the movie up to this point, but every time she went on screen, she had to stand in front of a blow dryer for 2 minutes before they allowed her to be on camera. Also, her face just gets progressively redder through the film to the point that I was like, get this girl some hot cocoa. She's cold. The water tribe bows to Aang and Sokka and Katara really awkwardly join them. And Aang does this little dance and bows back to them. That's supposed to be really meaningful and moving because he didn't bow back to the air people before they all fucking died. And then Zuko's dad tasks Azula with stopping the Avatar from learning Earth and Fire. And Azula does a horrible smile. And then we go straight to M. Night Shyamalan's name in the big text. Like, he owned the fact that he made this movie and put $12 into it. So overall, this movie wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, maybe. There's simply no internal conflict or like reason for the characters to be doing what they're doing except like they must. The god of the story has declared that they must do this, and so now they're just like puppets, like, oh, now we must go under. The story was kind of on par with like the story of Avatar 2, The Way of Water, in terms of like just being shallow and not fun, but like at least Avatar 2 was like pretty to look at. This movie was not. And there are lots of funny moments that I could tell were supposed to make me laugh, but just did not get me. Like when the Earthbender guys find them and they say,
He was bending tiny stones at us from behind a tree. It really hurt.
Or right after that, Katara tries to waterbend at them, but instead accidentally throws the water back at Sokka and freezes him in it, and he's like, Katara! And I was like, So this movie gets 2 out of 10. I thought of giving it 1 out of 10, but I think the rewatchability factor is maybe ever so slightly, just a tiny bit there. Like, I might rewatch this one day as a joke or to show, you know, bring other people into the misery of watching one of the shittiest movies ever made, but I would never watch this again just for fun on my own. At the end of the day, I would say don't watch this movie. It's simply not worth it. That's 2 hours of your life you'll never get back. And we die one day, all of us. Just watch the trailer for the new one instead, because the trailer for the new one was so much better. It had so much more emotional depth and character development and accuracy to the original story in 2 minutes than this movie did in 2 hours. It was 10 times better than Shyamalan's pile of shit that he gave us. Sorry, bud. Anyways, that was our video today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and like and comment and all the things. And I also have a Patreon. It's in the description, or QR code will be somewhere here. Y'all are fantastic. And I will see you next week with the hopefully actually good Netflix Avatar the Last Airbender. I'll see you on the flippity flip.